You are listening to Fox Radio 910 and 104.3. I want to welcome you to Let's Talk About, our weekly radio program sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia. My name is Linda Balentine, the president of Crowning Touch and your host for this series. I interview local characters, service providers, politicians, teachers, entrepreneurs, and business professionals, and each one is dedicated to improving life in our valley. Every person has an interesting perspective to share from all walks of life. So, let's begin today's interview. Today, we're taking a journey through the rolling hills of Southwest Virginia to a place where tradition meets innovation in every bottle. My guest today is Tyler Wind, the owner of Wind Vineyards, a family-owned operation that's quickly making a name for itself with its award-winning wines, picturesque setting, and passion for community. We'll hear how Tyler transitioned from his roots in agriculture to cultivating a destination that's as much about experience as it is about exceptional wine. So whether you're a connoisseur or just curious, this is a conversation you don't want to miss. Tyler, welcome to Let's Talk About. And you have such a fascinating background and so many things going on. This is going to be a fun interview to do. Let's talk about how in the world you got into this. What attracted you about the whole winemaking thing? I mean, that's a big deal, and you started from scratch.
I sure did. Sometimes I guess people would say that I don't know if I'm suffering from insanity or enjoying every minute of it, but I have a eclectic mix of a background, and really what got me into the wine business was a desire to do agriculture and agritourism.
Right.
And so originally I was an orthopedic surgeon. That's what was my primary career. And I was working as a surgeon. And as somebody told me one time, I was an orthopedic surgeon so I could afford to be a farmer. I really love tractors. I love farming. I love growing things. And I also liked hospitality. You know, my wife and I had gotten into the rental business. And so we enjoyed having people. And I had this ambition to be able to invite people to our family farm. And so we started thinking about ways we could farm, and we had 700 acres at that point we bought in Tappahannock, which is our original location, and couldn't really find a way to make it a sustainable farm. And somebody said, well, why don't you start a winery? And I said, well, that's great, except I don't know a whole lot about wine. And so it was kind of off to the races after that.
Well, isn't that terrific? So this is is this your second location then here in Bonita, or your... Okay.
Yes, it is. This is our second location. So we opened our first location in Tappahannock. Our first vintage of wine was in 2020, and we opened our tasting room in May of 2022. And we have grown extremely fast since then. We've become very popular throughout the state and wanted to open a second location at a place I love here at Smith Mountain Lake.
So you chose Smith Mountain Lake because of the whole tourism aspect? Sounded like it would flesh it out a little bit for you, or what?
Yes, I'd like to say it was a calculated business decision, but really it was selfish because I've always loved Smith Mountain Lake.
Yeah.
My family and I have been part-time residents at least of the lake since 2011.
Wow.
I did my fellowship in Roanoke, and that's when we first lived at the lake. I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I've always looked for an excuse to be back here more.
It is a beautiful, beautiful place. So you've got 60 acres here. Why don't you tell us the address? You're right off of, you're in Moneta.
Correct.
Yes. What's your address here?
15772 Moneta Road. We're about 1 mile from the Halesford Bridge on the Bedford County side.
Okay, and it's important for people to know that because you are an event master. You have got something going on all the time. As a matter of fact, there's something going on this weekend. There's something going on next weekend. Brief me a little bit on what's happening here, because it's an opportunity for people to come on out. Can they sip the wine at the same time? You've got stuff for them to do that way?
Absolutely. Everything we do, the kind of the centerpiece and heart and soul of our business is selling our wines.
Right.
But we also want to be a place where families can come.
Right.
And people that may not even like wine can come. And so we want to be a community center and a place that can serve the community in many different capacities. And so to do that, we've come up with, again, a very eclectic mix of events, ranging everything from black tie dinners to monster trucks and rodeos.
And it takes some space to do that. I mean, I haven't had the benefit of, we're going to go on out to the winery after we finish this interview, but, you have dedicated space for these activities. I mean, monster trucking can eat up some ground.
Absolutely. Well, when I bought my original farm in Tappahannock, it was all forest, and we had to convert it into open land, and we cleared 700 acres, and I bought all the heavy machinery to do that. And so we own the heavy machinery, and so we make things work for ourselves and do a lot of stuff ourselves. And we enjoy the satisfaction of doing that.
Okay, that really, really makes sense. Can we talk about, well, actually, let's do this. I'm going to share with them your website. Okay, absolutely. Let's share with our listeners your website. Very simple, windvineyards.com. If anybody has any questions, want to buy any tickets, first of all, you can go to the website. But if you have any other questions, you can call 804-238-5544.
That's correct.
And everybody needs to line up, because if you can't come this weekend, you can come next weekend. If you can't come next weekend, there'll be another opportunity for you.
Absolutely. We got something for everybody.
And then you do multiple stuff still out in Tappahannock?
We do. So, starting the last weekend in April all the way till the middle of November, we have a big event where we're expecting at least 1,000 people at one location or the other.
Wow.
All but 1 or 2 weekends.
Wow. All righty. Do you want to talk about grapes for a minute?
Absolutely. Sure. I love some grapes.
All righty. So how many acres of vines do you currently have under cultivation total?
So currently, we jumped in head first, as I do with everything in my life. I tend to not start small. So we planted 40 acres of grapes.
Wow.
And we actually grow more varieties of grapes than anybody I'm aware of in the entire state of Virginia, out of about 350 wineries. So, and that's somewhat, might be out of ignorance when we planted that many different varieties, but we wanted to do that intentionally because we have a very broad mix of customers, and we wanted to have something for everybody so everyone could be a customer at our winery.
And it's nice to find out, the only way to find out what really does well is to go ahead and stick some in the ground. Isn't that true?
Absolutely.
Some varieties will do better than others.
Without a doubt. And that's one of the things, Virginia wine is up and coming and certainly becoming more popular. But one of the things I found when I got into this is that there's no Bible on growing grapes in Virginia. And every time I talked to an expert and I would ask, will that grape grow here? The answer was, I don't know. Try it.
Didn't Jefferson grow grapes?
He did try, and he didn't do very well. And we've learned a lot of the ways to manage to grow the European vinifera grapes here since Jefferson first tried many, many years ago. But we can do that now. Where
did you get your stock? Where did you get the little pieces of vine that you were going to stick in the ground?
It really depends on the specific grape.
So you got them in different places?
Yeah. So, we look for the best nursery for that. We want certified rootstock. We want vines that are oftentimes grafted onto rootstock that's going to resist our diseases and grow well and thrive in our soils.
Right.
And so there's a whole lot of science and everything that goes into selecting it. But some of them came from New York, some came from Arkansas, a lot of them came from California. Different locations for different grapes that we were growing.
Now, you've got 4 kids.
I do.
Are any of them old enough to be any good? At this point in time,
well,
what can they do? Can they pick bugs off of leaves?
Absolutely, and they have gotten their fill of work at the winery.
You're building character now. Remember that, Tyler.
Absolutely,
just lean into it.
Well, they do a great job, and that's one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to have a family business. Being a surgeon was a great blessing, and really enjoyed taking care of people. But I couldn't take my kids in the operating room with me. I have nothing I could pass on to them, and nothing we could do together. And so this winery and the whole wind farms idea was something that we can do as a family. So
that sounds fantastic. Because your wife's still she's still with you?
Yes, absolutely.
She's behind this whole thing.
She might be suffering from the insanity more than enjoying it, but she's drug along for the ride.
Well, I think I've spent a lot of time on a farm myself for 25 years, so I can really appreciate what you're doing. I understand the challenges. What is the most difficult part of managing a vineyard here in Virginia that you've experienced so far? Because you haven't been doing it that long, but
seems
you're
like I've been doing it for an eternity.
You're knee deep in it. You're knee deep.
There are a few challenges. Labor is always a challenge, of course. So finding reliable labor.
How do you deal with that? You don't know what kind of year you're going to have.
It's a struggle, and that's why it's truly farming.
Right.
So you're relying on the weather, and some years you're going to win, some years you're going to lose. A lot of what we've done has gone towards mechanizing our vineyard.
I got
So there are machines that can harvest grapes. They can harvest an acre of grapes in about 30 minutes.
Do you have to worry about bruising them if you're just going to juice them?
Not really, but you do want to maintain the juice in the grape.
Oh, great.
And so if you break them open, you're spilling juice on the ground. That's obviously not good. You don't have to worry so much about bruising because what we're going to do with the grapes is we're going to pick them usually early in the morning when the temperatures are lower, and then we're going to take them straight over to process them.
Right, so they don't get too hot. How do you handle the pests and diseases?
So, you have to have a spray program here in Virginia. I honestly don't know anyone that has zero spray.
So there's no such thing as an organic grape?
not that people will say it, but that's subject to interpretation.
Okay.
If you don't spray your grapevine here in Virginia within 1 month, it will not have a single leaf on it.
Okay, what happens to it? What gets it?
So usually there's a variety of diseases, downy mildew, powdery mildew, especially out where, our main vineyard is out on the coast. Our humidity is pretty much 100% all the time.
Right.
And so that's just a breeding ground for certain diseases, botrytis, bunch rot, sour rot, anything that can make those grapes go bad is out there lurking and waiting.
But there probably are some other things, whether it's copper sulfate, there's other stuff that you might be able to use. It's not necessarily killer stuff.
Absolutely. No, a lot of the stuff we do, we'll spray copper. We can spray sulfur.
Right.
One of the biggest things we spray is hydrogen peroxide.
Wow.
So it's a drug, a chemical called oxidate, but literally it's hydrogen peroxide. So, yes, it is spraying, but it doesn't mean that it's always a toxic chemical.
Gotcha.
And spraying gets a bad rap in the media, but it's, like I said, one of the main things we spray is hydrogen peroxide, which is in pretty much everybody's medicine cabinet.
Well, why don't you walk us through the winemaking process from harvest to bottle, but I want you to start like right now, because right now you seem to be pretty relaxed.
I don't know if I'm relaxed. I function on a few hours of sleep every night, and it's a challenge.
Plus, you've got 4 kids.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to ask you if you're at this time of year in the stage of processing. Is this a more relaxed time, or are you still continuing to plant now, or do you have everything in the ground, your 40 acres that you want in the ground?
Well, we're not planting anything at the moment. We're getting all that nice and stable and trying to ramp up our sales, which is another goal of opening here at Smith Mountain Lake. We produce a lot of wine.
Right.
And it's all turned out extremely well. It's been extremely high quality. It's been extremely well reviewed and well received and well awarded. And so we wanted more customers. I wanted to do this. I enjoy rural life in rural areas. I'm from Tappahannock. It's a town of 3,000 people, but it's hard to sell 12,000 cases of wine to 3,000 people.
So do you sell to restaurants and other retailers, or how do you do that?
We do, absolutely. So we can self-distribute. So there are several restaurants which carry our wine as well, and we'll sell to other outlets. We actually have some of our wine that's sold as unlabeled wine to other wineries for them to be able to sell to customers.
Do you have a professional taster? Can I apply? Don't you need somebody like the king has to?
Absolutely. We need a taster to make sure the wine is good before it goes out.
Exactly right. I could give you a good idea of whether it's any good or not. But continue to walk me through. All right. So in the spring season, you're focusing some on marketing. You aren't planning anymore. What do you have to do to the vines?
We're not planning, but there's growing grapes is pretty much a 10-month-a-year job, believe it or not. It's not like even row crop farming where, you kind of put it in, you harvest it, and there's not a whole lot to do in the interim except maybe spraying. So I'll just start a little bit from the beginning. We start pruning around January 1st.
Okay.
And every one of our 40,000 grapevines has to be pruned by hand.
You have 40,000 grapevines?
Correct. And the average grapevine probably takes a person that knows what they're doing, 7 or 8 minutes to prune.
Whoa,
so
buddy.
You do the math on that, and we're rushing and busting it to see if we can get done before buds start breaking in April. So you have about 4 months all day, every day pruning these grapevines. Then after the buds break, then you have to start your spraying program and stuff, managing the weeds underneath, cutting the grass in the vineyard, and then, just managing the grapes, which means keeping them in the trellis, keeping them between the catch wires, thinning out the shoot, thinning out the crop to get the quality that we want. And that continues all the way until when we harvest, usually around September to October.
Do you have to spend time tying up the vines when they're spreading out like that? They got those little arms stretched across the wires.
Absolutely. No, well, you got to make sure they go. We have catch wires, so that way they grow up into the trellis. That gives us surface area for the sun to be able to hit it, which actually helps to ripen your fruit, dry out the canopy so you resist diseases better.
You want circulation.
Yep, but sometimes they don't know to grow into the catch wire, so they need some guidance.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they'll grow too much. So we have some varieties that'll end up growing 20 feet in a year, and so you're coming through and you're hedging those off because we don't want too much surface area. You want kind of just the right amount, but not too much.
Yeah, because otherwise all the energy goes into creating leaves. Is that correct? Maybe, and not fruit, or what?
That's somewhat. And it can also throw off the chemistry of the grape a little bit, which could impact your wine quality.
All righty, so keep on going. So now we're at the place where, can we pretend that the grapes are thick and luscious on there right now? I mean, so it's fall.
Absolutely.
And is that September, October? When is that?
So usually our first grape, Brianna, is one of the unique varieties we grow that everybody loves. And that's usually it's always been the first variety to come in. That's usually around the third week in August.
Wow, I had no idea. Is that a red or a white? I'm not familiar.
That is a white grape.
Really?
Yeah, a white hybrid grape, and it makes a really good wine, has really awesome tropical kind of banana, pineapple flavors,
Really?
Like nothing you've ever tasted.
Wow. Got to try it.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, so that Brianna comes in.
Brianna comes in, then pretty much it's fast forward after that. I mean, we have 28 different varieties over those 40 acres, and it is going to be just nonstop harvesting and triage. And
do you blend them, or are you trying to keep them true to their variety in the bottle?
Usually what we do with our grapes is we will try to keep everything separate initially.
Right.
So we'll get them all into the cellar, get them processed, keep everything in separate tanks or barrels, get it all through fermentation, and then we have wine. And then usually somewhere around Thanksgiving, we sit down and we do a blending session. That's when we decide, we line up all 28 to 30 different varieties that we have.
Wow.
And the different wines, and we say, okay, what is going to stand on its own? What do we don't know what the home is for it yet? And what do we think needs to be blended with something else, somewhat for taste and somewhat for the safety of the wine? Because one of the biggest things about winemaking is keeping the wine from spoiling. And the best way to do that is to make sure that your tanks or your barrels are completely filled and there's no space for oxygen.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Huh. Alrighty. So then you've got them in the tanks, but you're going to bottle them.
That's
so
correct.
That's a process. How long can they stay in a tank? I mean, can you drain off as much as you can sell, and there's better to leave the rest of them in the tanks?
No,
it's better to get them in the bottle?
You don't want to do that for the reason we just discussed, because then you create headspace or space for oxygen in the tank. So the best way to make sure you don't have oxygen in that tank, yes, we can use inert gases like carbon dioxide or nitrogen or argon to try to top the wines, but that still has some risk to it. So what we really want to do is we want that tank
you want to empty the tank.
full.
How big is the tank?
The tanks we have are about 900 gallons.
Whoa, buddy. So
Yep.
You're going to make some serious bottles.
So every tank ends up producing, in the neighborhood of about 4,000 to 5,000 bottles.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. So last year we made 170,000 bottles of wine.
I had no idea. I thought you're a little winery. You're a little family winery. This sounds like a big deal to me.
We are straight out the gate. When we try to do things, we go for broke. We go big or go home. And I don't know exactly where we lie in Virginia among the 350-ish wineries there are, but I'm venturing to guess we're probably top 10 to 20 as far as varieties and number of wines that we make.
So when do the award season start? I mean, do you then pick your bottles? How do you do that? And how do you get noticed that way? Because that's part of your promotional stuff too, right?
Absolutely. No. So you can enter different competitions, and we've been extremely blessed and done extraordinarily well. When we set out to do this, I wanted to do it right. And so I have an interest in doing this. I'm officially would be classified as the winemaker, but I have a world-class consultant that helps me every step of the way. Yeah. And so I proudly say that. Because
you need a mentor in this thing. For
absolutely.
Sure.
I knew nothing about winemaking when I started.
And you aren't Italian. You're not Italian from the looks of you, so you need help.
I am German, but we can't grow Riesling. But no. So I went out and hired a consultant, actually national winemaker of the year in the country, very well known, very well decorated.
How neat. How wonderful
to help
for you.
Us along the process.
So then that puts you in the award-winning category. Let's talk about some of the biggest mistakes, because now you're successful at the level that you're at. You're continuing to grow, but was there a mistake? Doesn't everybody make mistakes when they start this out? Did you have any that come to mind?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there's constantly a learning process, and wine making is really, not to be too cheesy about it, it's really an art, not a science.
No, it is. It is.
And it's farming, and every year is going to be different. If a winery tells you they reduplicate their wine indistinguishable year after year, they're lying to you. That doesn't happen. Every year is going to have a different growing season. It's going to have a different time that the buds break. It's going to have different frost, different rain.
So the same bottle of wine, the same Brianna bottle, from one year to the next, there will be a variation.
Without a doubt.
And it can't be helped.
And sometimes what we'll do is when we go to those blending sessions, we might do some constructive blending to try to match something we had from the year before. But one year the grapes might have more flavor to them.
More sugar.
Exactly. And they might have a little more potent flavor. And because when we get to harvest time, you're especially playing the weather, because if a big rainstorm coming and the grapes aren't quite ripe, you're like, okay, what's the less of the evils? Do I pick before the rain when the grapes aren't quite ripe? Or do I let them ride out the rain, knowing that could lead to disease? It could swell the berries, dilute down my sugars.
Right.
And so, there's always a calculated risk with every action you make.
So if you were speaking to somebody who was getting into the winemaking business, what would be one of the big pieces of advice that you might give them as you look back over everything that you did? I mean, did you start at the right size? Did you, what do you think you might say to somebody? Don't do it, or do it?
Everyone always jokes and has all the jokes, run away while there's still time. How do you make $1 million in the wine industry? You start with 2 million, and there is some truth to those things. But I would tell you this: if you wanted to get into the wine industry, I personally believe that going big and doing it right is the way to do it. Everyone said we should plant like 3 acres of grapes first. Well, if you plant 3 acres of grapes, you're not going to have a hope of being able to do things properly and make a quality wine. Okay. And I wanted to make one of the best wines in the state, or I didn't want to make wine at all. Right. One of the mistakes I made is going around talking to wineries that were doing it maybe perhaps a little more like a hobby than a business, and looking at their setups, because mine ended up costing about 10 times what I thought it would. Wow. But we wanted to do it right. We were dedicated to doing it right. And that has paid off enormously for us. But I would tell people, if you get into this, this is not something that's by far not a get rich quick scheme. It is a ton of work. But the thing is, you got to love it, because I really don't feel like that I work. I can work in the cellar all day, all of our big events. I mean, I thrive on that, and I enjoy doing them. So I really work in 14, 16 hours a day, but I just don't feel like it.
Do most of the vineyards have big events like this? I know they have tasting rooms. They have nice patios for you to sit on and all that other stuff, and they might have a little restaurant. But do they do these events the way you do?
I don't know if anybody does the events the way that we do. So, and we're somewhat unique in that. And that's really for 2 reasons. Number one, we love the rural communities we're in, both the Tappahannock Northern Neck area and the Smith Mountain Lake region. And they are small rural areas that normally would not get a world-class monster truck show. Right. They normally would not get a world-class rodeo with professional riders. They normally would not get a big hot air balloon festival or a concert like we have with Montgomery Gentry coming. Right. So we have all those things. I wanted to provide those things to these communities that I love. And, furthermore, on that note, we have to attract people. I'm not in the wine meccas like Loudoun County, Charlottesville, where you
on the tour where there can be a dozen wineries.
We are off the beaten path. Right. So there has to be a reason for someone to come to Wynn Vineyards, and we supply them that reason with everything that we do.
What's next for Wynn Vineyards? I mean, are any expansions or new products in the works? Or when you're looking at the next 5 or 10 years, what's in the back of your mind? Well,
I dream a lot of dreams and stuff. And, sometimes I sell myself short even, because you think that you'll never get somewhere. And then within a year or two, bam, there you are, and you're doing that. But we want to continue to grow our events. I mean, our goal is to be one of the leading wineries in the state and the leading agritourism operation in this whole kind of mid-Atlantic region. And we're working hard towards that. We've grown dramatically. I think, as far as like social media, we're already the 3rd most followed winery in the entire state of Virginia. Wow. So we've made quite a big splash, but we are never complacent. We always want to better our best. We're always looking to improve and add more. And so we're going to keep working for that. Right now, we're building a tasting room, event center, and restaurant at Smith Mountain Lake here that's going to be about 13,000 square feet. Really? So that's another thing we do. We go big with our tasting rooms. That enables us to have a restaurant, live entertainment, spaces for events, and then we're constantly doing things: bingo, karaoke, trivia, dancing, craft classes. You name it, we'll do it.
Well, that's very cool, because you also are serving a population within an hour of here. There's at least 250,000 people.
Absolutely.
And that's not counting the group in North Carolina.
That's exactly right.
That could come up here. All righty. I've got another question here for you. And I want you to, everybody's talking about the impact that AI is having on their lifestyle or their employment or anything. I know it's going to affect the medical field tremendously. Absolutely. In a good way. Same with the legal field. Have you heard any gossip or stories about what AI might do for the vineyards? Would it help you mix? I mean, what do you think? Just of what you know, not whether you're using it, because it's all so new.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that it has a great potential to, give more truth to people and be able to sort through a lot of evidence very quickly. To help them, I know personally right now for me, it helps me speed up my writing for press releases and everything.
Yeah.
Although sometimes that frustrates me because I want to be able to do it myself, but that doggone AI sometimes does it better. As far as just finding answers and everything to vineyard management, and some of it, we're all farmers now, so we're probably, like just hang out on our tractors off of our phones whenever we can. But nevertheless, that's the world we live in. So I think it will have an impact coming in the future.
Will it help with some of the diseases and bugs and give you some of the remedies ahead of time? I guess what you're saying is the same. It could have the same result that it does in the medical field in general, and that is you can compile a lot of research really quickly with AI and have it right there at your fingertips to tackle a problem.
Right. And, for me, I'm a very research person. Whether I'm buying something on Amazon or from a store, I'm going to research it to the end degree to be able to make sure I get the best and understand it. So it certainly is taking a lot of time off my researching. It kind of does a lot of that work for you.
Do you have any other unique or unconventional techniques that you use here that might set you apart? I mean, you're breaking ground in all sorts of other, ways. You're having an impact.
We think outside the box. And I think for myself, and, coming from a background that was not wine and that was not even, somewhat agriculture. I grew up on a farm. We had some pigs. We did some row crop farming with my dad on the side when I was younger, and I loved that. But I wouldn't say that I was a true farming expert. Right. I mean, I became a surgeon. You
were open-minded, it sounds like, when you approached the whole idea of...
Absolutely. And I think that you have to be open-minded. And that's, I think, is honestly one of our keys to success is making everybody a customer. A lot of wineries would really turn their nose up at a monster truck show, but we actually own the monster trucks. I have a monster truck called Grape Crusher, which you can ride in. It's the world's only agritourism-themed monster truck, winery-themed, and people love it. And that has gotten us a lot of exposure and enabled us to really kind of rise to the top because we're not afraid to do something like a monster truck show or to make a wine that's different. We have a fruit wine series that sells very well, not traditional, and we still have the traditional wines, but we're not afraid to think outside the box and do things differently.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler. I hate to cut it off, but we just want to meet you this weekend. I know you got to get back out there to your monster trucks. God bless you. Thank you for this interview.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to Let's Talk About, courtesy of Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services of Roanoke, Virginia, the only moving company with a consignment shop, auction house, and real estate division. We are a one-stop shop for any senior making a move. Check out our website at crowningtouchusa.com. Or if you are planning a move, call Anna at 540-982-5800 to arrange a free estimate. And don't forget to check out our monthly browse and bid auctions at 6712 Williamson Road in Roanoke, where you can bid online on over 1,800 items each month. Meanwhile, let's get back together next Friday at noon for more of Let's Talk About on Fox 910 and 104.3.